Commander John Harris sat in the back row of the Grand Council chamber. He tried to keep his face calm, but his knuckles turned white as he gripped the edge of his seat. At the center of the room, Earth's Ambassador Elizabeth Moore stood tall despite the whispers and sneers around her. The chamber itself spoke of the power difference. Massive stone columns reached toward a ceiling painted with the histories of 100 alien species. Earth, the newcomer, had no place in those stories. The circular arrangement of seats rose in tiers, with the most powerful species at the lowest level, closest to the speaking floor. Earth's assigned spot was in the highest, darkest ring. "The people of Earth have decided," Elizabeth said, her voice steady despite the interruptions. "After 20 years of unfair trade deals and ignored pleas for help, we will withdraw from the Galactic Council." A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber. Ambassador Elizabeth paused, waiting for quiet that did not come. John watched the faces of the alien representatives. The blue-skinned Vexari delegates whispered behind webbed fingers. The insect-like Trazarians clicked their mandibles in what John had learned was their version of laughter. Even the usually serious Polmar were making the slow blink that signaled amusement. Representative Zixler of the Vexari Dominion stood up, his jeweled robes catching the light. Without waiting for recognition from the council leader, he spoke over Elizabeth. "Perhaps the primitive species that barely escape their own atmosphere realizes they cannot keep up," he said, his translator giving his words a musical quality that made the insult sound almost pretty. "Let them go back to their little corner of the galaxy. They brought nothing of value anyway." More laughter filled the room. Elizabeth stood still, her gray eyes fixed on the council leader, who made no move to restore order. "Earth's withdrawal will be complete within one standard cycle," Elizabeth continued when the noise died down. "We will respect existing passage treaties but consider all resource rights returned to our control." This caused a stir. The Polmar representative rose slowly. "You cannot simply claim resources already granted by charter," she said. "The mining operations on your outer planets, the fuel extraction in your asteroid belt, these belong to council members by agreement." "Agreements made under coercion," Elizabeth replied. "Agreements where Earth received 5% of the value of resources taken from our own system. Those agreements end with our membership." The council leader finally raised his four-fingered hand, silencing the growing noise. "The council acknowledges Earth's decision, however foolish," he said. "You will find survival difficult without our protection and technology. When your people suffer, remember it was your choice." John watched as Elizabeth nodded once, gathering her notes. "We understand the consequences," she said, "and we choose freedom over convenient submission." As she turned to leave, Representative Zixler called out one more time. "The humans will come crawling back within a decade. Their ships can barely reach their own moon without breaking down." Elizabeth didn't turn around. She walked with perfect posture toward the exit where John waited. He fell in step beside her as they left the chamber, the sound of alien laughter following them down the corridor. Once aboard their shuttle, safely away from alien ears, John finally spoke. "They have no idea, do they?" Elizabeth looked out the window at the massive council station growing smaller behind them. For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. "No," she said, "they don't. That's our advantage." She pulled out a small communication device and pressed her thumb against it. The screen lit green. "The vote is complete. Earth's withdrawal is official," she said into the device. "Initiate Project Phoenix." John looked at the stars outside the viewport. The council thought they were watching Earth retreat. In reality, they were seeing the first moves of a game they didn't know had started. "How long do we have?" John asked. 5 years, Elizabeth replied. 5 years to build what we need while they laugh and forget about us. The shuttle accelerated toward the Earth fleet waiting at the jump point. Behind them, the council continued their meeting, already moving on to matters they considered more important than the departure of one insignificant species. They would remember this day differently in years to come. 5 years passed since Earth walked away from the Galactic Council. Major Susan Reynolds stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching through the thick glass as workers in spacesuits moved around the massive ship. The Mars shipyard stretched for miles, hidden on the far side of the red planet, away from prying eyes. "The ESS Defender is the 10th ship of the fleet, Major," said Dr. Alan Wright, his tablet showing the ship's specs as they walked along the observation deck. "Twice as fast as anything the Vexari have, and the shield technology can absorb their energy weapons." Susan nodded, her eyes tracking a team as they installed what looked like a simple panel on the ship's hull. She knew better. That single panel contained weapon systems that the Council had always claimed humans were too primitive to understand, let alone build. "And the Council still has no idea?" she asked. Ellen smiled. "They stopped watching us 3 years ago. Their spy satellites were easy to feed false data. They think we're struggling with food shortages and power grid failures." In truth, Earth had flourished since leaving the Council. Without the heavy taxes and one-sided trade agreements, human colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter had grown quickly. The resources that once left the solar system now stayed to build Earth's future. "What about the new drive system?" Susan asked as they entered the command center overlooking the shipyard. Screens showed construction happening throughout the solar system. On Titan, massive defensive platforms were nearly complete. In the asteroid belt, mining operations now worked for Earth, not alien masters. "Ready for testing next week," Alan replied. "If it works as expected, we can reach Alpha Centauri in hours instead of months." A young officer approached with a tablet. "Major Reynolds, we've received word that a Council trade ship has been denied access to the mining facility on Ceres." Susan took the tablet, reading the angry message from the Council. "They claim we have no right to block their ships," she said. "They still think they own our resources. What should we tell them?" The officer asked. "The truth," Susan replied. "Ceres mining facility is now Earth property. They can negotiate a fair purchase agreement if they want the minerals." The officer nodded and left to send the message. Susan turned back to the window, watching as the ES Defender's lights came to life, systems powering up for the first time. "They'll send more ships," Alan said quietly. "We're counting on it," Susan replied. "Each confrontation tells us more about their capabilities while revealing nothing about ours." On a large screen nearby, a map showed green dots spreading beyond Earth's solar system. Each dot represented a human outpost or ship, moving into systems that the Council had claimed but never truly settled. Small and quiet, these outposts reported back data about Council movements while establishing human presence. "Report from the Jupiter Defense Grid," Major called another officer. "They've successfully tested the new sensor jamming system. Council ships will only see what we want them to see." Susan allowed herself a small smile. For 5 years, humanity had worked in silence, building the strength that the Council had mocked them for lacking. Every insult in that final meeting had fueled their determination. A loud chime sounded throughout the command center. On the main screen, an alert flashed. A Council scout ship had been detected entering the outer solar system. "Right on schedule," Susan said. "They're finally getting curious about why their ships are being turned away." She turned to the communications officer. "Send word to all outposts. Operation Shadow is now active. Show them nothing but weakness." The plan was simple but effective. Let the scout ship see outdated technology. Let them report back that Earth was struggling. Let the Council continue to underestimate humanity for just a little longer. As the scout ship approached, Susan watched the ES Defender slip silently into a hidden dock, vanishing from view. Across the solar system, humanity's true strength disappeared behind false fronts and clever deceptions. The Council had laughed when Earth left. They weren't laughing now, but they weren't worried either. Not yet. Soon, they would understand what they had created when they pushed Earth away. Captain Olivia Martinez stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiant, watching the main screen as 3 Vexari ships approached the human mining colony on Titan Beta. The small colony, home to 400 men and women, sat on an asteroid rich with rare minerals. 6 months ago, humans had claimed it. Today, the Vexari had come to take it back. "They're hailing us, Captain," said the communications officer. "Put them on screen," Olivia replied, straightening her uniform. She knew every word of this exchange would be recorded and sent across human space. The screen flickered, and the face of the Vexari commander appeared. His blue skin shimmered under the lights of his ship, and his eyes narrowed when he saw Olivia. "Human vessel," he said, not bothering with a greeting. "You are in Council territory. The mining colony on Titan Beta belongs to the Vexari Dominion by Council charter. You have 20 standard minutes to evacuate your people." Olivia kept her face calm. "Commander, this asteroid was unclaimed when we arrived. We have established a legal mining operation here under Earth Authority." The Vexari commander's mouth twisted in what she recognized as a smile, though it held no warmth. "Earth Authority means nothing in Council space. Your primitive species left the Council. You have no rights here." Behind Olivia, her crew worked quietly at their stations. They had trained for this moment for years. On a small screen to her right, she could see the colony's defense systems coming online, hidden from the Vexari's view. "We did leave the Council," Olivia agreed, "but this system was never officially claimed by any Council race. We have surveys dating back 15 years proving it was marked as unclaimed frontier." "Surveys that the Council never approved," the commander shot back. "You were too primitive to be trusted with such work. This is your final warning. Leave, or we will remove you." Olivia glanced at her tactical officer, who nodded slightly. Everything was ready. "I must insist that you reconsider, Commander," she said. "We have no wish for conflict." The Vexari ended the transmission without reply. On the main screen, Olivia watched as the 3 ships moved into attack formation. They were confident, showing no concern about facing a single human vessel. "They're charging weapons," reported the tactical officer. "Activate defense protocol," Olivia ordered. "Broadcast on all frequencies." What happened next would change the balance of power forever. The Vexari ships fired, energy weapons streaking toward the Defiant. Instead of striking the hull, the energy beams hit an invisible barrier and simply stopped. No explosion, no damage, nothing but a soft blue glow where the shield absorbed the attack. The Vexari fired again, with the same result. On the colony below, hidden defense turrets emerged from what had appeared to be simple mining equipment. "Return fire," Olivia said calmly. "Targeted disabling shots only. We want them alive to tell this story." The Defiant's weapons fired with a precision the Vexari had never seen from humans before. The first shot disabled the lead ship's engines. The second took out the weapons on the second ship. The third ship tried to flee, but a tractor beam locked it in place. In less than a minute, the battle was over. 3 Vexari ships hung helpless in space, their crews watching in shock, as the human vessel they had dismissed as primitive now controlled their fate. Olivia opened a channel to all 3 ships. "This encounter has been broadcast to every human settlement and to the Council itself. We did not start this fight, but we have ended it. You will be allowed to leave with your ships once repairs are complete. But remember this, Earth is no longer the weak species you once knew." She closed the channel and turned to her first officer. "Send the recording to Earth Command. It's time for the next phase." Across Council space, the news would spread quickly. Humans had technology the Council had never seen. The species they had mocked for years had been hiding their true strength. And this was just the beginning. Council High Admiral Drexar pounded his fist on the round table, sending ripples through his ceremonial water bowl. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 6 hours, with no clear plan in sight. 3 ships, he shouted, his translator struggling to keep up with his angry clicks and whistles. 3 of our best Vexari patrol ships disabled by 1 human vessel. The recording played again on the large screen. The Council members watched in silence as the human ship absorbed energy blasts that should have destroyed it, then disabled the Vexari ships with perfect accuracy. In the gallery above the main floor, William Hayes sat quietly. As Earth's official observer to the Council, he had no vote and no voice in the proceedings, but his presence reminded everyone of the changing balance of power. He took notes on a small tablet, his face giving away nothing. "The humans must have stolen the technology," said the Trazarian representative, mandibles clicking nervously. "Their scientists could not develop shields like that so quickly." "Not stolen," corrected the Polmar scientist who had been called to testify. "Our analysis shows their technology is not like anything in Council records. They developed it themselves." This caused a new wave of angry voices. William watched as different species argued with each other, pointing fingers and making threats. None of them looked at the real problem. At the far end of the table, Economic Advisor Patricia Rodriguez was finally allowed to speak. She had been sent by Earth as a supposed trade negotiator, but her real purpose was to gather intelligence. "With respect," she said, her voice cutting through the noise, "you are asking the wrong questions. You should be asking why humans developed these technologies in secret, and why they are now in systems you thought were secure." The Council chamber went quiet. The Vexari ambassador leaned forward. "What do you mean, systems we thought were secure?" Patricia tapped on her tablet. The main screen changed to show a map of Council space. Small red dots began to appear, first a few, then dozens, then hundreds. "These are human outposts and ships," she explained, "all established in the last 5 years, while you thought we were struggling to survive." "Impossible," shouted one of the Council members. "Our patrols would have seen them." "Your patrols saw exactly what we wanted them to see," Patricia replied calmly. "Small mining operations, research stations, nothing that would cause concern." Admiral Drexar studied the map with growing horror. The red dots were everywhere, often near key Council supply routes or strategic locations. "This is an invasion," he said. William Hayes finally spoke from the gallery. "Not an invasion, Admiral. Preparation." All eyes turned to him. "For 5 years, you ignored us," William continued. "You thought we were weak, primitive. Meanwhile, we studied you. Every species in the Council has military and economic weaknesses. We mapped them all." He stood up, straightening his simple gray suit. "The Vexari energy grid can be disabled by targeting just 4 relay stations. The Trazarian fleet requires a specific fuel mixture available from only 2 sources. The Polmar defense systems have a communication delay of 3 seconds, enough time to bypass them completely." The Council members looked at each other in shock. These were secrets they thought were well protected. "Are you threatening us?" asked the Council leader, rising from his seat. William shook his head. "Not threatening. Warning. Earth does not want war. We want respect and fair treatment. The choice is yours." He walked toward the exit, stopping at the door to look back at the panicked faces. "You have 1 standard month to decide. Earth will send representatives to discuss new terms. I suggest you be ready to listen this time." As the door closed behind him, chaos erupted in the chamber. Species that had laughed at humans now faced the possibility that their entire defense systems could be compromised. The balance of power had shifted, and no one knew what would happen next. Outside in the corridor, Patricia joined William. "Do you think they'll agree to talk?" she asked quietly. William's face was grim. "They'll talk. The question is whether they'll try something foolish first." General Kevin Foster watched the Council delegation arrive at the neutral station orbiting Proxima Centauri. The large viewing window gave him a clear view of their ship's docking. 6 different species had sent representatives, more than Earth had expected. "They're scared," said Chief Negotiator Laura Phillips, standing beside him. "All 6 of those species have major operations in systems where we've established a presence." Kevin nodded, his eyes tracking the security teams that accompanied the aliens. They brought twice the security detail allowed under the meeting terms. Laura smiled slightly. "As expected, let them keep their extra guards. It makes no difference." The neutral station had once been a minor trading post. Now it was the center of the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. Earth had chosen it carefully, close enough to human space to be secure, but neutral enough that the Council could save face by coming here. An hour later, Kevin stood at the back of the conference room as Laura sat across from the Council representatives. The aliens had chosen Ambassador Krellick of the Polmar to speak first. His gray skin and large eyes gave him a sad appearance, which humans had learned was misleading. The Polmar were among the most aggressive council species. Earth has demonstrated impressive progress. Krellick began, his voice translated smoothly. The Council recognizes that perhaps our previous arrangement was less beneficial to Earth than it could have been. Laura said nothing, waiting for him to continue. We are prepared to offer new terms, Krellick said, sliding a data tablet across the table. Earth would be welcomed back to the Council with full voting rights. Your colonies would be recognized. Resource sharing would be adjusted to give Earth 30% of all extracted materials from your system. Kevin watched Laura's face remain perfectly neutral as she reviewed the tablet. The offer was far better than anything previously given to Earth. Just 5 years ago, it would have seemed miraculous. These terms are generous, Krellick added. More generous than any new species has ever received. Laura set the tablet down. They are better than before, she agreed, but they still treat Earth as a junior partner seeking admission, rather than an equal with its own strength. What exactly does Earth want? Asked the Vexari representative, clearly struggling to hide his irritation. Laura touched her own tablet, sending a document to each council member. These are our terms. The aliens read in silence. Kevin watched their expressions change from confidence to disbelief to anger. This is absurd. The Trizarian delegate chittered. Recognition of all human settled systems. Some of these are deep in traditional council space. Systems that were unclaimed until we settled them, Laura corrected. Or systems where council claims existed only on paper, with no actual presence. And these reparations, the Vexari representative said, his voice rising. The amounts are impossible. The amounts equal exactly what Earth would have earned over 20 years if we had received fair payment for our resources, Laura replied calmly. We have all the records. And this last demand, Krellick said, his large eyes blinking rapidly, a complete restructuring of council voting rights, giving equal voice to all member species regardless of age or territory. This would undo 1,000 years of council tradition. 1,000 years of larger species dominating smaller ones, Laura said. That time is over. The council representatives huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. When they turned back, Krellick leaned forward. Perhaps we can negotiate on some points. The resource payments could be adjusted. Some of the systems could be recognized. But the voting structure must remain as it is. Laura stood up, gathering her materials. You misunderstand, Ambassador Krellick. This isn't a negotiation. It's a courtesy notice of how things will be moving forward. She nodded to Kevin, who opened the door for her. Earth does not need the Council's permission to exist as an equal power, she said from the doorway. We would prefer peaceful cooperation, but we are prepared for the alternative. You have 1 standard week to accept these terms. As they walked away, Kevin spoke quietly. Do you think they'll agree? Laura's expression was grim. Some will, others won't. And that's when the real trouble begins. Colony Administrator Daniel Morgan was finishing his daily reports when the alarms began to sound. New Eden, Earth's largest colony outside the solar system, was home to over 10,000 civilians. Families who had come to build a new life on a planet with clean air and open land. People who had escaped the crowded cities of Earth to farm and raise children under 2 suns. He rushed to the control room, pushing through the crowd of worried staff. What's happening? He demanded, looking at the main screen. The young sensor operator's face was pale. Ships dropping out of jump space, sir. Lots of them. Vexari design. How many? 23, the operator replied. All warships. Daniel felt his mouth go dry. New Eden had defenses, but nothing that could stand against that many ships. The colony was mainly farmers and scientists, not soldiers. "Send the emergency signal to Earth Command," he ordered, "and get me a channel to the Vexari fleet." The communications officer nodded, fingers flying over her console. The screen flickered, then showed the blue face of a Vexari commander. "This is Administrator Daniel Morgan of New Eden Colony," Daniel said, keeping his voice steady. "Your fleet has entered Earth-controlled space without permission. Please state your purpose." The Vexari commander's face showed no emotion. "The Vexari Dominion does not recognize human claims to this system. Your presence here is illegal under council law." "We're a peaceful colony," Daniel replied. "Mostly families and researchers. The council's 1-week deadline for negotiations hasn't even." "There will be no negotiations," the commander interrupted. "The Vexari Dominion has decided to take independent action to protect council interests." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "You're acting without council approval." The commander's mouth twisted into what humans had learned was a Vexari smile. "By the time the council meets to discuss it, this matter will be resolved." The screen went dark. Daniel turned to his security chief. "Begin evacuation procedures," he said. "Get everyone to the shelters." "It won't matter," the security chief said quietly, pointing to the sensor readings. "They're charging weapons. This isn't an occupation force. It's an extermination." Daniel looked at the faces around him, at the people who depended on him. He pressed the emergency broadcast button. "This is Administrator Morgan. All residents proceed to emergency shelters immediately." "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not." The first blast hit the colony's main power station. The lights flickered and died, emergency systems coming online seconds later. The second blast took out the communication array, but not before the distress signal had been sent. From orbit, the Vexari ships began systematic destruction of the colony's infrastructure. Supply warehouses, water treatment facilities, defensive positions, all reduced to rubble within minutes. In the command bunker deep below the surface, Daniel and his staff listened to reports coming in from across the colony. The death toll was rising rapidly. "Why would they do this?" whispered the communications officer. "They must know Earth will respond." "They're counting on it," Daniel replied grimly. "They want war." Aboard the Earth Defense Station near Alpha Centauri, Defense Secretary Michelle Bennett received the distress call from New Eden. The message was brief: colony under attack, civilian casualties, Vexari warships. Then nothing. She stood perfectly still for several seconds, absorbing the information. The officers around her waited in silence. They all knew what this meant. "How long to get our nearest ships to New Eden?" she asked. 4 hours at maximum speed," her aide replied. "But by then?" Michelle nodded. They all knew it would be too late for the colony. The Vexari had planned this well. She walked to a secure console and placed her hand on the scanner. The screen lit up, asking for her authorization code. "Defense Protocol Prometheus is now active," she said clearly. "Authorization Bennett, Alpha 7-9. Across human space, hidden fleets that had been preparing for years received the signal. Ship captains opened sealed orders. Defense stations powered up weapons systems that had never been used outside of tests. What the Vexari had started, humanity would finish. The Council had mocked Earth's exit until the day came when mockery turned to fear. Now fear would turn to regret. The war had begun. Admiral Gregory Harrison stood on the bridge of the EFS Vindicator, the largest ship in Earth's fleet. Around him, 30 other human vessels moved in perfect formation. On the main screen, he watched as they approached Vexari space. "Status report," he ordered, his voice calm despite the weight of what they were about to do. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his first officer replied. "Weapons charged. Shields at maximum." Gregory nodded. The images from New Eden played in his mind. Over 3,000 civilians dead. Farms burning. children's bodies in the rubble of schools. He had watched the footage in silence before addressing his fleet. The council observers are following at a distance, the censor officer reported. 5 ships, 1 from each major council species. Let them watch, Gregory said. That's why they're here. The council had officially condemned the Vexari attack, calling it unauthorized aggression. They expected Earth to retaliate against the battle group responsible for the New Eden massacre, a limited, proportional response. They were about to learn how wrong they were. We're crossing into Vexari territory, the navigation officer announced. Send the message to all Vexari civilian ships and stations, Gregory ordered. His communications officer nodded. Message sent. All non-military personnel have 1 hour to evacuate designated zones. Unlike the Vexari, Earth would not target civilians, but what came next would still shock the Council. First target coming into range, reported the weapons officer. Vexari Defense Platform Alpha. Begin the operation, Gregory said. Across his fleet, special teams activated systems that had been developed in secret for years. The Vexari Defense Network relied on a linked system of platforms, each connecting to the next in a chain. Earth scientists had studied this design for years, finding its weakness. 10 small ships broke from the Earth fleet, moving quickly toward the defense platform. They weren't attacking. They were deploying devices that looked like simple satellites. As each device activated, it sent a precise signal that disrupted the platform's communications. On the screen, Gregory watched as one by one, the lights on the defense platform went dark. First platform neutralized, reported his tactical officer, moving to second target. The same pattern repeated across Vexari space. Defense platforms, communication relays, sensor arrays. One by one, they went silent. No destruction, no explosions, simply darkness as each system shut down. In just 40 minutes, the entire Vexari defense network was blind and mute. Vexari fleet approaching, called the sensor officer. They've mobilized everything they have. Gregory watched as hundreds of Vexari ships moved to intercept his fleet. They still outnumbered the humans, but they were flying blind, unable to coordinate with each other. Implement Phase 2, he ordered. His ships split into smaller groups, each targeting a specific section of the Vexari fleet. Again, they didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they used targeted electromagnetic pulses that disabled the Vexari ships without destroying them. Vexari captains watched in horror as their ships lost power, weapons, engines, everything but life support and basic communications. They could see the human vessels moving past them, untouched and unstoppable. On a secure channel, the council observers were frantically reporting what they witnessed. None of them had imagined humans could neutralize the entire Vexari military without firing a single deadly shot. Sir, the communications officer called. We're receiving a message from the council. They're demanding we cease operations immediately, or they will intervene. Gregory smiled slightly. Send the signal to Earth Command. It's time for the demonstration. Across 5 different council homeworlds, small devices that had been hidden years earlier activated simultaneously. For 30 seconds, crucial defense systems on each world went offline. Power grids flickered. Military communications failed. Then everything returned to normal. The message was clear. Earth could reach any council world at any time. Message from Earth Command. The communications officer said. President says, well done. Return to Stage 1 position. They'll be ready to talk now. Gregory nodded, looking at the disabled Vexari fleet drifting helplessly. Set course for the rendezvous point, he ordered. Our work here is done. The Earth fleet turned as one, leaving Vexari space as quickly as they had entered it. Behind them, they left a military power that had been neutralized without a single Vexari death. It was a demonstration of power and restraint that would change the galaxy forever. 1 year after the Vexari conflict, Ambassador Elizabeth Moore walked through the grand doors of the council chamber. The room fell silent as she entered. It was the same room where, 6 years earlier, alien representatives had laughed as Earth announced its withdrawal. No one was laughing today. Elizabeth wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's new emblem, a globe surrounded by stars. She carried no weapon, but the power she represented was unmistakable. Behind her walked 4 aides, each carrying data tablets containing the new agreements. The chamber had been redesigned. The tiered seating that once placed powerful species closest to the floor and lesser ones in the back was gone. In its place was a circular arrangement where all representatives sat at the same level. Elizabeth took her place at the speaker's position. She looked around at the faces of species that had once dismissed humans as primitive. Their expressions now showed caution, respect, and in some cases, fear. 1 year ago, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. A terrible choice was made. The Vexari Dominion chose war over peace, chose destruction over cooperation. The Vexari representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their once powerful empire now existed under strict limitations, their military reduced to a defensive force only. Humanity tried cooperation, Elizabeth continued. We were mocked. We tried isolation. We were attacked. Now we offer one final choice. She gestured, and her aides stepped forward, distributing data tablets to each council representative. The document before you outlines the new structure for our interstellar community, she explained. Not a council ruled by the oldest or strongest, but an alliance of equals. The representatives studied the tablets, some with surprise, others with relief. Many had expected Earth to demand total control after demonstrating such overwhelming power. Every species will have equal voting rights, Elizabeth said. Resources will be shared fairly. Technology will be exchanged openly. And most importantly, aggression against any member will be met with a unified response. She paused, looking directly at the representatives who had been most dismissive of Earth in the past. We could have demanded your surrender, she said quietly. We could have taken control of your worlds as you once sought to control ours. Instead, we ask for partnership. The council leader rose slowly. You ask us to trust humans with protecting our interests. The same humans who planted devices on our homeworlds, who shut down our defenses. Elizabeth nodded. Yes, just as we ask you to protect human interests, despite your past actions. Trust must begin somewhere. We choose to begin it today. She touched her tablet, and a large screen in the chamber displayed images of Earth ships helping rebuild New Eden colony. Next came footage of human medical teams treating Vexari civilians injured in accidents when their defense grid collapsed. Strength without compassion is just another form of weakness, Elizabeth said. Earth has no desire to rule the galaxy. We only wish to ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. In the gallery above the main floor, Captain Paul Jenkins of the Earth Diplomatic Guard watched the proceedings with interest. He had been on the bridge of the EFS Defiant during the first confrontation with the Vexari. Quite a change from the last time humans stood in this chamber, whispered his lieutenant, a young woman who had joined after the Vexari conflict. Paul nodded. Funny how they only respected us when they feared us. The lieutenant looked thoughtful. Is that real respect, though? No, Paul admitted. The real work begins now, proving we're worthy of that respect. Below, the representatives were voting on the new alliance charter. One by one, they signaled their acceptance. Even the Vexari, humbled but not destroyed, joined the agreement. Elizabeth watched the unanimous vote with a mixture of satisfaction and determination. The easy part, winning the war, was over. The harder part, building a peace that would last, was just beginning. As she left the chamber, she noted that her path took her past the same corridor where she had walked out 6 years earlier, followed by alien laughter. The sound she heard today was different. The sound of civilizations working together in the silence of mutual respect. Earth had changed the galaxy. Now they would have to live up to the promise of that change.